Hi, I'm Rob Wright with Dark Reading.
Hi, I'm Dave Jones with Cybersecurity Dive.
Hi, Alyssa Ure, Search Security at Informa TechTarget.
The three of us are here today to discuss 2026 predictions. Every year we get a lot of emails from different companies, different sources, different PR folks about what their predictions for what's going to happen in 2026, technology predictions. And so what we did this year is we took all of these emails that we get, their predictions from various companies and various sources and executives, and we fed them into an AI. We're not going to say which AI, just say we fed them into an AI to summarize them, to find the most common ones, the most frequently cited predictions, common trends, common threads, and spit out a list. And here we have our AI generated list, and we're going to discuss it and figure out what we think is likely to happen and what we are a little bit more skeptical about, let's say. So let's jump right into it. The first one on our list, agentic AI and autonomous systems become primary targets for threat actors. What do we think about that?
I think this could be a really short episode if we just said AI 10 times.
Yes.
Those are our 10 predictions. It seems plausible to me. Dave, what do you think?
I think AI is ready for a reality check. I think we've already started to see the capabilities that threat actors have in terms of being able to abuse AI, particularly if the proper guardrails are not set up. I think that a lot of companies want to benefit from the potential productivity gains of AI. The question is, have they prepared themselves for the risks that they may not anticipate? And I think that for some companies, if they haven't thought this through properly, if they haven't tested it properly, I think there's going to be a bit of a reckoning for some companies. I think some companies will be able to utilize AI properly. They'll be able to see some actual productivity gains. But we're going to find out who's, taking some of these risks seriously and who's moving a little bit too fast.
I think that agentic AI in particular is going to be interesting. I think it's being used in some pretty compelling case studies, but just knowing that the threat actors are also targeting it and trying to abuse it is concerning. So it's not a surprise that that's one of the most common ones that we got.
And when you have AI agents that have the permissions of human users, that obviously raises some questions and some concerns. The enthusiasm for the business use cases might not always be matched with the security controls, which brings us to our next prediction, I believe, Rob.
Yeah. So this is actually tied for number one. I should have said that. But it's number two in sequential order. So it is identity, zero trust, and non-human identities, NHIs, are the new security foundation. Basically, identity will replace the network as the primary security boundary and control point. I feel like this has already happened, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think, if you have machines that are constantly in communication with each other and you don't have a sense of the proper level of permissions that are being offered to all of the automated links, into your network, we've seen situations where one very obscure link can wreak havoc throughout an entire network. And I think that unless companies are acutely aware of, who they are interacting with, what kind of permissions they have, and how dependent they are on those connections, we're going to see more of these, particularly as companies become more dependent on automation.
Yeah, I think that this is already happening, but the rise of agentic AI and with non-human identities outnumbering human identities by so many factors, it will put organization zero trust architectures to the test. So the question is how rock solid is your zero trust framework, and is there implicit trust in places or given to entities that you're not aware of? Because that could lead to some really big problems in 2026.
Right. Next up, we have AI-driven social engineering and deepfakes will erode trust. So AI will accelerate the scale and sophistication of social engineering, making deepfakes and synthetic media like video and voice cloning the preeminent social engineering vector for high-value access. Well, I mean, I guess the preeminent vector, that hasn't quite happened yet. Do we think it's going to happen? I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's been one of the big stories of 2025 already. I mean, we've seen that it's, a sophisticated actor can pretty easily fool senior executives, help desks, IT networks, IT desks, in terms of being able to trick them into granting permissions to get into a network and do a lot of damage. And companies have not figured out how to train key employees to recognize this. They haven't really, I mean, with all the security software you put into a network, a lot of this is just taking advantage of human behavior. And you have to really think of, how do your employees and your outside contractors and various levels of the company, how do they interact with these various attempts? Someone can maliciously send out a request in their name, pretend that they are speaking on their behalf, going after family members. I mean, it's probably going to get a little bit more interesting next year as some of the technology gets, more sophisticated.
And more accessible.
More accessible. Great point. I feel like you can do a lot of this stuff without AI, but the Sora stuff makes me a little nervous. I don't know about you, Alyssa. Some of these videos are pretty convincing, even for someone like me who I think generally this stuff doesn't look very authentic. So
yeah, it feels like we may be at a moment in 2026 that will be very scary, in that the sophistication and the accessibility of the tech will be at an all-time high, but the typical user might not be aware that that's possible yet. Because I'd say to date, most widely viewed, at least, deepfake content is a little clunky, or there are telltale signs, but it seems like there's an inflection point coming where even sophisticated users can't tell they're looking at a deepfake video, and a public awareness might not be there yet. So scary.
Good point. All right.
Just one more thing. I mean, you don't necessarily need to have a good deep fake. You can just have, very good voice cloning. And if somebody can capture your voice for authentication, they can gain a lot of access just using that capability.
Number 4, supply chain and third-party risk intensifies, demanding visibility and proof. Supply chains will become the number one access point for adversaries as attackers target small embedded vendors to access thousands of downstream environments. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, we've seen in certain cases where, one of the problems that companies have, particularly in manufacturing, processing, logistics, that type of thing, if you're highly dependent on a constantly moving supply chain to, not only move goods, but to, provide for thousands of companies that depend on your business for their livelihood. If an attacker can basically force you to disrupt your production process or disrupt your distribution process, that can create a lot of anxiety for days, weeks, months at a time in certain cases. And if you don't necessarily understand how secure your various dependencies are, um, you might be in for a bit of a long haul. And
For sure.
that's something that we've seen already in 2025 in various cases, not only with software, but in terms of, you know, major companies, JLR, for example. There are other companies that have gone through situations like this. And it's going to be something that companies are going to have to think about very, very closely next year, because I think we're going to see some of these types of attacks again.
Yeah. JLR is a big one. Alyssa, what are your thoughts?
Say that this strikes me as true and also more of the same. I don't think this is a huge shift from what we've seen in 2025, but yeah, supply chain, third-party risk, still a big problem. Got to have your S-bombs.
Yeah, S-bombs. They really have been playing up. Just the whole strengthening the software supply chain and making sure you have your S-bombs and you're not relying on compromised open source libraries or stuff that's been potentially tampered with. It's a scary world out there. Okay, number 5. Executive accountability, AI governance, and boards focus on risk. Boards will recognize cyber risk as a tier 1 operational priority and demand measurable security outcomes. Rising legal and regulatory pressure, especially concerning AI, will increase executive and CISO personal liability. Oof. I don't know about this one. I have my doubts, but I'll save them. I'll let you guys go first.
Well, I think it's been a concern where you can personally hold a board member or a senior executive, personally accountable for either failure to disclose or failure to raise some of the proper red flags up the the channels of a C-suite, or properly kind of give regular updates and guidance for potential risks involved in product security or the rollout of a new product or new technology. And I think that companies are going to need to set up proper guardrails, particularly if they're expanding their use of AI before they go out and deploy some of these technologies. And the consequences are going to play out over time. I don't think we're necessarily going to see huge impacts immediately, because I think the case law is going to have to be developed in terms of how states and federal government and international overseas governments kind of address this. And once we start seeing deployment on a larger scale, we're going to start to see some of these cases kind of play out in court.
I think that we, in our reporting on search security, at least, we are seeing a growing awareness at the board level of the importance of cybersecurity. So that seems likely to continue. I think organizations understand that cyber risk is business risk, which is a good thing. In terms of CISO personal liability, I don't necessarily see that happening. I hope that doesn't happen. I know that's something that CISOs worry about. It seems unfair at best. And I don't know what the future of the role is if that does become the case, that CISOs are personally liable for the cybersecurity of massive enterprises. That seems like a return to the battle days when CISOs were a little more than scapegoats. Rob, what do you think?
I'm skeptical about that part. I do think that there's going to be more sort of consideration and more responsibility on CISOs and board member and executives from the board members. And we just saw a pretty big case somewhat recently where the charges were dropped against the CISO that was under fire, and according to many people, wrongly charged, implicated in that incident in terms of being accused of not disclosing and recovering it up, or benefiting from it or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know that it's going to move in that direction. If anything, it seems like maybe under the current administration, it's going to relax a lot. But who knows? I could be wrong. You never know what's going to happen these days. We live in interesting times, I guess, right?
I think there's a way to address that if, CISOs, I believe, have some legitimate concerns about it.
Tied for number 6. OT, IoT, and critical infrastructure become a top cyber risk surfaces. I think this one's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, that seems very likely to me. I don't know if I have too much to add. I don't know. Alyssa, what do you think?
I think it's scary. It scares me. Seems likely, seems true. Yeah. I hope it's wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I think my thought on it is that for non-security experts inside companies that produce things or have long production lines, they may have people that know how to develop the products that they sell, but they don't necessarily know what OT is.
No.
They do understand how to run a factory, how to produce whatever their core products are, and I think the goal is to be able to translate a risk that you would expect to impact IT to potentially understand, well, if this risk jumps over to your production line, what does that look like in the real world?
Right.
If I can't, if I'm a maker of electronics, or I produce certain food products, and I have a risk where I have to literally shut down the production line for a few hours or a few days or a few weeks, what do I do?
Yeah.
Can you flip the switch back on in a week and expect everything to go back to normal?
Yeah, probably not.
I think in a lot of ways, it's surprising we haven't had more attacks on OT and critical infrastructure that have had far-reaching impact. Like obviously we had Colonial Pipeline. There's been some incidents at the water plant in Florida, for example. But
right.
It seems like so far we've gotten off relatively easy, given the security gaps that we know exist in some of these organizations.
Yeah.
So
maybe we won't be so lucky in 2026. Scary thought.
Yeah.
All right. Also tied for number 6, visibility, attack surface management, ASM, and data sprawl are critical gaps. This is sort of a hodgepodge of a few things here. Traditional perimeter thinking is obsolete, yada, yada, yada. Data sprawl, let's just focus on that one for a second. We've seen a lot of data sprawl recently, Dave, with the Salesforce attacks, with data getting into Salesforce instances that includes IT support tickets and credentials and secrets, stuff that should be in there. It seems like sensitive data is kind of spreading beyond, your code repositories and into other areas. So I don't know. This one seems like I would say that this is probably accurate. Probably going to see more of this data sprawl.
Well, I mean, if you have your most sensitive information located somewhere where you have no control over it, what do you do?
Yeah.
And who do you blame? And can you say, well, it wasn't in our repository, we didn't have control of it? If I'm someone where my data is, in some third-party site or storage repository, I still care whether that data is accessed by the wrong people.
Right.
And I don't know necessarily if anybody wants to hear, well, it wasn't us. We gave it to this other organization and they had control of it, and it's not our fault. I don't know if that's going to fly.
No. Yeah. Good point. Alyssa, any thoughts?
I co-sign. Nothing substantive to add. It's seems like
Okay.
if it's a problem, it'll continue to be a problem in 2026.
It's like leave your wallet at your friend's house and then complain when somebody breaks in to their back door.
Okay, number 8, cyber resilience and recovery replace prevention as the core metric. The focus is shifting from achieving secure systems to prioritizing defensible, resilient, and recoverable systems. Okay, yeah. I mean, I feel like we've been in the assume breach mold for a while and focused on having incident response plans, but maybe we are going to be moving more in that direction, and it's going to be more about how you recover from something than preventing it. I don't know.
It seems like this is related to the earlier prediction about board level awareness. And it seems likely that board members and C-level executives with no cybersecurity experience are understanding almost without exception that breaches are going to happen. Cybersecurity really means cyber risk management, not total prevention of any incidents. So it seems like the knowledge is trickling up in that sense.
I think what is going on here is that companies have to assume that they are going to one day face a potentially catastrophic attack. And how do you build a system internally that can withstand that type of incident and maintain operations and understand who's responsible for what under those circumstances? Because I don't think you can pretend that, it'll never affect us, we're too prepared. But if something does happen, does everybody know what their responsibility is? Is there a backup plan? How much redundancy have you built into your system? And I think that companies that are prepared to handle that type of, potentially catastrophic impact are going to be the ones that are able to kind of plow through an event like that, because I think at some point, whether you were the cause of it or not, you're going to have to be able to address, that scenario.
Right. Good point.
And that gets back to that supply chain risk that a lot of it's not necessarily your control.
Yeah, it's out of your hands. All right, number 9. I've been waiting to get to this one. I'm surprised it's only number 9 on the list. I thought it might be higher. Quantum computing threats accelerate. I'll just read this. The long anticipated threat of quantum computing is moving from theoretical to tangible, accelerating demand for quantum safe encryption. I'm a quantum threat skeptic, I guess. I think we're a lot further away from this than people think. I know there's risk of, harvest now and decrypt later, obviously, but I don't think we're really at anywhere near the tangible threat level, me personally. I don't know about you guys.
Well, I mean, we might get to Mars sooner than we think, right?
Sure.
I mean,
possible.
If the asteroid's coming this way, what if it's really a spaceship?
Yeah, it could be.
I think that, there's been a lot of hype about quantum computing, and there's, been a lot of theoretical discussion about, am I going to be able to protect my most, critical national security secrets and, financial services and military level, technology, and somebody is going to eventually figure out how to break into systems at that level. And I don't know necessarily if this is going to be a widespread, widely used technology, but it doesn't necessarily take a lot of it. It just takes one really bad event.
Right. True.
Would a spaceship be better than an asteroid? I guess it depends on what's
Depends
on
how
the
fast it's coming at
spaceship.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I'll defer to the experts that I talk to. I won't pretend to have my own take, but everyone I've spoken to so far seems to think we're not there, or even close to there. So again, I hope that's true.
That's reassuring.
Yeah.
I'd like to live in a world where this stuff isn't easily cracked, but
Yeah.
eventually.
No asteroids, no spaceships.
No asteroids, no spaceships. All right, last but not least, password elimination and passkey adoption accelerates. Password-based authentication will finally become obsolete in forward-thinking organizations. What do we think about this?
Are we being aspirational?
To quote Yogi Berra, I think it's deja vu all over again. I feel like we've heard this before.
Yeah, how long has this been going on?
Optimistic.
A few years.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, yes. We would like to have a situation where, when we're logging on to our, most important applications, that we don't have, a list of about 200 passwords, which is basically a, reiteration of, our old street or our best friend's last name or, whatever combination of things you can remember in your head. But as we know, a lot of people, use poorly constructed passwords, and they keep kind of reusing them, and it's hard to remember all that stuff in your head. And they keep saying, we're gonna change, we're gonna, evolve, we're gonna use new methods. And we keep going back to the same bad habits.
Yeah, I think the question here is what do you consider a forward-thinking organization? I know there's a lot of financial services firms, there's technology firms that have moved away from passwords, embraced passkeys, embraced physical keys, and Google has had phishing-resistant keys now for many years. I guess it's like, the question is, how many organizations are going to be forward-thinking and are going to do that? Is it just going to be that 1% at the top, or are we going to start to see that level kind of move down to other organizations? I'm not optimistic. I'm pessimistic by nature. So I don't know that that's going to happen this year. But that is it for our predictions. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. This was fun.
I guess we'll save this in a bottle.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're going to bottle this up, and we'll see how it turns out at the end of 2026, and we'll do it all again. Thanks, guys.